Welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil, and I'm playing hurt today, so
Yes.
I'm doing my best to get through. We expect the Leafs to push through, and I'm going to do the same.
Well, the Habs helped us out, so that's good because they they beat the Florida Panthers today.
Oh, that's good.
So we got to get the win. We're recording this on Sunday, and got to get the win versus the Ducks tonight. So, but it's April when we publish this podcast, and the NHL season is winding down. A lot of excitement and some anxious time for us fans as we head towards the playoffs. A quick reminder that our show is brought to you by BetOnline, and you can get in on NHL props and futures on the world's most trusted betting platform. Visit betonline.ag. It's your number one source for betting on all the madness too. Even if your bracket is busted, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with live betting on every remaining tournament game.
With the latest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to NHL, MLB, and MMA, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know needs some support or advice, you can reach out to Connex Ontario or an organization near you.
All right, so starting out the show today, just with a look at these free agent college signings that the Leafs have made in the last couple of weeks, quite a few of them. First of all, they've signed John Prokop, a one-year contract for next season, 23 years old, defenseman, 6'3", 195 pounds. He had 27 points in 36 games with Union College in NCAA hockey.
The Leafs also signed forward Luke Hames to a 2-year deal, also starting next season. He's a 21-year-old center, 6'1", 203 pounds. He had 18 points in 22 games with Dartmouth College in the NCAA this year, and both players have joined the Marlies for the remainder of the season on amateur tryouts. And one more college free agent signing got done on Saturday night. Ryan Kierwan, left winger out of Arizona State University. He's 23, 26 goals and 13 assists in 37 games. So
because we don't have any, draft picks coming up for the NHL draft, we're doing, we're hoping, that some of these college free agents pan out. The one that everyone knows that did pan out was Tyler Bozak for us. But so the John Prokop and Luke Hames, they played last night their first game versus the Belleville Senators with the Marlies. And then yesterday, the late one, Ryan Kierwan, he played with the Arizona Sun Devils. That's their name from Arizona State University. And I was reading a bit of an article that Nick Barden wrote on it and on him. And he's a sniper, apparently. He's all about his shot. That's all he talked about in this article that Nick put out. But if he can score, we need scoring, right? So hopefully that'll turn out at the NHL level.
For sure. All right, so now we're going to get into the show, and we're going to start with the Ladies Talking Leafs highlight reel. And then for a third period segment, we welcome back to the show our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
All right, so it's been an up and down week for the Leafs. A lot of down with that San Jose game, let's just say. But we did pick out a few highlight reel moments. So let's roll it.
All right, so coming in at number 3, we had David Kampf. First goal in 12 games versus Philly. We don't see David Kampf on a breakaway very often, but he showed he has some nifty stick handling moves, faking a backhand and then going 5-hole on the Philadelphia goalie, Samuel Ersson. He's channeling a little bit of his world championship Czechia prowess there.
And
so anyway, that's good. I think the fact that he was, in the press box for a few, he made good with the time that he's been given now.
Yeah, definitely. It was a healthy scratch for 3 games prior to that. So yeah, he wants to be in the lineup. You could tell that, and he played well last night versus the LA Kings too. I noticed him quite a bit being on the just being tough in the corners and just winning the draws and just doing what a fourth line centerman should do, although he's getting paid too much for that.
But. Yeah, I was just going to say, I know people lament the fact that, he's paid much more than he should be for a fourth line guy. But, at this time of year, we just want the wins and we want success in the playoffs. So I'm not really going to care. They're not getting paid during the playoffs anyway. So I don't really care what the cap hit is when we're at that stage of the game
right now. Yeah. All right, number 2 is a guy that's just playing amazing right now, John Tavares. So JT's game-winning goal versus LA was right in his office. And actually, I looked up on NHL Edge from the bottom of the face-off circles to the crease. 16 of his 35 goals have been scored from right there. So it's almost half of them. It's the best month in his career, which is unbelievable, with 13 goals right now, and he still has 1 game to go versus the Ducks. So yeah, he's just on fire right now, JT. And I
whatever
just hope
he's doing with his red light and amulets and his PMF mat, all the nutrition he does. Yeah, he's just got to keep that going. I'm sure he will do that, but he's been just a stalwart there. Really, in games where some guys have not been consistent, you're getting the same thing game in, game out from that guy. So
yeah,
and he definitely deserves that number 2 spot.
5 goals in a row now, 5 games, 5 goals. So that's pretty impressive from John Tavares.
Absolutely. All right, so then coming in at the number 1 spot, we have William Nylander. 42nd goal of the season versus San Jose. Definitely wasn't a great game for the Leafs, obviously, but on 6-on-5, Nylander hit the top corner of the net with 14 seconds left in the third period. That tied the game and got the Leafs a point. He's definitely clutch when it comes to the end of the game in overtime. I'm always excited to see Willie out there in those moments because that's where he shines and he can get it done.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable. 3 40-goal seasons now, 3 in a row. That's
pretty impressive.
That's pretty good, right? So much as we were complaining about not this, a little bit maybe this contract, he's definitely worth the money though for what he's done and continues to do. I mean, I like it too. He's kind of getting some nastiness in his game. Like last night, he showed some feistiness and and I just love the way he's playing. That 42nd goal too. It was a few NHL players were saying it's tough to get. He picked the corner there, not a lot of room there, and
and it was through some traffic too. So yeah, it was definitely one of those seeing eye goals. But you know what? You're mentioning, his latest contract and everything. I have not even thought about it.
Yeah.
So that says it all. When a guy is earning his keep, so to speak. You're not thinking about that when he's definitely playing up to it. So.
Yeah, and I loved what he said in his interview too. He's paid. That's what he's paid to do.
Yep.
Right. Score goals.
It's all business.
Yeah.
So there's only 9 games remaining for the Leafs as they aim to take first place in the Atlantic Division. To talk about the road to the playoffs and all things Leafs for a third period segment, we welcome our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello.
All right, so we're about 3 weeks away from the start of the Stanley Cup playoffs, just under 3 weeks, actually. And to talk about where the Leafs are at, we want to welcome our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello.
Mike covers the Leafs and the NHL as a reporter and is a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. Mike is the co-editor covering the Buffalo Sabres for the Hockey News, and he is also the co-managing editor of Hockey Hot Stove and co-host of Off the Post podcast and the Leafs Convo. Thanks for making the time to join us again, Mike.
It's tough. You may as well just say thanks for having me, or end the show there because the introduction just took too damn long.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me as usual. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no. Well, you got too many jobs, Mike. That's the thing. It's just like, and now with the hockey hot stove coming on, like that's, everybody should go to hockeyhotstove.com to sign up to get the news when that, I believe it's going to be starting hopefully for the start of the playoffs, right?
Yeah, we hope, but we will keep everybody updated, knock on wood.
Yeah. Yeah. So just sign up on the website there and you can get the news about that. But let's get into the Leafs. They didn't do themselves any favors to losing to San Jose, I guess, and Nashville, the bottom end teams, during the month of March, and losing valuable points for that first place spot in the Atlantic. So I don't know. I'm baffled actually the way Craig Berube is using Scott Laughton, and he was supposed to be the answer to be the third line center, but he doesn't seem to want to use him there. And what do you think the answer is for this third line? Do you think, like, going into the playoffs, do you think like Pacioretty is going to be coming back and saving that line somehow? Or
I'll use a line that I used a long time ago on Leaf Talk when somebody asked, what is the solution to the Leafs penalty killing? And I said a firing squad. I mean, I had assumed, and I would assume, that Craig Berube had some input in terms of, do we go after Scott Laughton? You know him from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And him saying, sure, I like Scott Laughton. He's a type of player, and he's a Berube type player. And you play him on the third line for 2 games, and then you didn't like what you saw, and then you played him at center on the fourth line for a couple games, and then you moved him up to third line on the wing. And the whole purpose of giving up a first-round pick in Nikita Gurbiankin was to get Max Domi out of the middle. Mm-hmm. And now, where is he? He's in the middle. And I just don't think that's a winning formula. Now, of course, if he doesn't have confidence in Laughton to be the third line center, then I have to ask of Brad Treliving, what the hell are you trading a first round pick and Nikita Gurbiankin for him?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You know what he is. He's been in the league for a long time. So I'm a little puzzled at the machinations of what's going on.
Yeah, because right now, I guess, because it's Domi with Laughton and
Yarncroke.
And Yarncroke. Okay, that's the one that's switching. Robertson was there for a bit, and then I guess
then Holmberg on the fourth line. Yeah,
he really likes Holmberg, Pontus Holmberg, Craig Berube.
Well, he can play left wing. He can play center. He's decent defensively. Just not very dynamic offensively. It's sort of like what you want out of your bottom six if the guy isn't a dynamic player is do no harm, which we'll get to Simone Benoit in a little bit.
Yeah, but so with the third line though, like, do you think, obviously I think from what Craig Berube said the other day and after practice about Pacioretty coming back, they're obviously saving him like for whatever, he's on LTIR, whether or not he's injured or not, who knows. But do you think like he'll go back with Tavares and Nylander?
Yeah, that's what I think is going to,
okay.
I think, because he played his best hockey playing, and he's, we know his injury history. Mm-hmm. We know more than likely he's not injured right now. They're load managing him toward game 1 of the playoffs. Maybe they sneak him in the last few games, but I don't know if they want to really risk that. But he played his best hockey playing with Tavares and Nylander. And, as long as you practice him a few days before, and maybe he gets sort of into the swing of things, I think that's the move you make. And then move Bobby McMahon down to the third line and gives the third line a little more dynamics. And then, obviously everything falls into place.
So then, so then basically Yarncroke, Robertson, and Holmberg are kind of like the interchangeable parts, I guess, with that.
I don't know if Yarncroke is. I think Yarncroke is going to be part of the starting 12. I mean, he hasn't been great so far, but, he was out for, 3/4 of the season. So I think they're going to play him every day. They're going to see where he is. And I think at least as a veteran guy, he's going to be in. I think right now, to start, it'll probably be Robertson, maybe Holmberg, and then, you can flip a coin.
Because Lawrence and Kampf are there on the fourth line, you would think, and then it's just the.
Yeah, he seems to have. Kampf seems to be back in his good graces after that stretch where, he took a stupid penalty and he lost patience in him and.
Yeah, he was out for 3 games. He was a healthy scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, but taking Kampf out of the lineup means you're playing Lawton at center. So it's either Lawton with Domi on the wing, and then Holmberg is your fourth line center.
No.
I don't know.
No. Yeah. All right. Well,
let's switch gears now, actually, to the goaltending. So neither Anthony Stolarz nor Joseph Woll have been great in the month of March, both with sub-900 save percentages. Who do you think is going to be the starter for Game 1 of the playoffs?
Matt Murray. Hey, he's doing great, and he's doing great with the Marlies. His goals against 1.7, 934 save. I mean,
wow.
But that's the AHL.
Yes, I know. This is a guy who's won 2 Stanley Cups, and he's younger than Anthony Stolarz. I know, but
yeah.
And the reason I joke about that is because every time you think you have it figured out, somebody throws a curveball. You thought, hey, Joseph Woll's starting to get it going. He had that unbelievable game against Colorado.
Yeah, but then the game at San Jose was like horrific.
And Nashville.
And Nashville too. The Nashville one wasn't as bad. Like I watched the San Jose highlights again, and he just looked uncomfortable in the net that whole night. Like he was just he's normally very efficient and precise, especially with his leg on the posts. And that's where he seemed to get beat a lot in that game. So yeah, he did not look comfortable at all. He's very swimmy. Reminded me of Samsonov a little bit there.
Well, I thought he was strong in the first period. I know that on the one save that he made, he sort of overextended and went a little too far, but still made the save. It's the second period that was the disaster. And it's like freeze the puck. Do not try to create something where you're waiting for Chris Tanev to like move to the side so you can pass it to him. I mean, this is Chris Tanev. It's not like you're passing it to Paul Coffey to create an offensive chance. Yeah. So instead of freezing the puck, you try to make this quick pass and you bank it off of William Eklund's skate in the net. And I'm like, oh my God. And just like, what are you doing? So you've got that. I mean, so I think strong game, Colorado, game against Nashville. I didn't blame him for the loss. I mean, if you're going to blame somebody for that loss, it was, the Morgan Rielly play. The 2-on-2 where Carlo, for some strange reason, decides to drift all the way from the right side of the ice to the left side, and the Rielly doesn't see the switch and leaves Luke Evangelista wide open in front of the net. So I don't blame Woll for that one. I have to blame him for 5 goals against one of the worst records in the league. Mm-hmm. But then Stolarz, he wasn't, I think I could have played goal against the Philadelphia Flyers and won. So I'm not going to give him a lot of credit for that. And the game previous to that, he wasn't strong, but then I think he was pretty good against Los Angeles. So, I mean, right now, that's the reason why I'm joking about Matt Murray is because and you can't go with a goalie rotation in the playoffs. You have to choose one.
Is that for sure? Because like you could look at the home versus away records. Like Woll tends to play really well at home. Stolarz plays really well away. But I know that's unorthodox, but
it's unorthodox, and I mean it's sort of without precedent in terms of. I mean, Boston toyed with it last year. Remember, they started Swayman game 1, Ullmark game 2, and as soon as Ullmark lost game 2 to the Leafs. And Swayman was really good in game 1. They said, we're going with Swayman the rest of the way. And they did. Now,
I think that's what you got to do. You have to go with the hot hand. It's like they're 7-game series. Yes, but it's short. And I know people say momentum does not go, from game to game or whatever, but especially for our team, like the shaky confidence that they're going to have, like you need something solid back there.
Yeah, the problem is you don't know who has the hot hand because it's sort of like been lukewarm for a while. And, I mean, I don't think, and the stats bear this out, Stolarz has not been the goalie he was before the knee injury. He's been good.
Sure.
He's been okay. He has not been, 2.2 goals against a .920 save percentage. Though, those days so far have not come back. Wall, his stats were worse after the Four Nations than they were before, but he's had games where I think he's been pretty impressive. So, I mean, wherever Berube goes, he's going to open himself up to criticism. That's why, I mean, I don't think if he goes Stolarz, I mean, he's been the better of the two goalies and more consistent of the two during the regular season. But I think the hook is not slow. It's going to be short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think personally, I do think he's going to go with Stolarz somehow, but there's 9 games to go. So we'll see. Maybe he's still, whatever. There's still time to measure it a bit. And it'll be interesting. Definitely. That's for sure. All right. So you mentioned Morgan Rielly there in the pairing with Brandon Carlo, and Morgan Rielly's season hasn't been that great. We all know that. But do you think he'll get it together for the playoffs? He's always been a playoff performer. Like, he's always been good there. And do you like him paired with Brandon Carlo? Because I don't think, some people were saying to put him back with Tanev again. Like, I think it's too late for that, isn't it?
No, because I wouldn't do that simply because McCabe and Tanev have been so good. I think it's too late in the game to all of a sudden switch that up and have Rielly play with Tanev. If you're going to do that and you're going to stick with that, you would have done that from the beginning of the season. I think the whole purpose of trading for Carlo was to put him with Morgan Rielly. And I think they've played decent. I mean, there've been hiccups like the Nashville game, but I do think overall they've played better, and Carlo is a good complement to him because he's a big right-hand defensive defenseman, and Rielly can take more offensive chances. Now, the game against Nashville, he was out there too long, tried to tie the game and got stuck out there, and then was at the end of the shift, and that's what contributed to the Evangelista goal. The funny thing is, and talk about irony here, because I've made my reputation destroying certain defensemen on this team over the years, and rightly so, because they all sucked. I mean, if you're talking about Corey Cross or Aki Patori-Berg or Anders Eriksson or Jyrke Lume, I mean, the list is too long. I mean,
did you like Jake Gardner?
Oh no! That's why I said the list. I was moving my way forward. Jake Gardner, the offenseman, not his defense was defensive. So Ron Hainsey to an extent. But there were a lot of defensemen that have been wanting. Mm-hmm. Morgan Rielly is not one of them, and that's the problem. It's like, I think he is. You're right and you're correct that he has had some regular seasons that have been sort of off. That one year when he was injured and he came back, and then I'm pretty sure that was the COVID year, because then he played well in the playoffs. And the 23 season, he was fantastic against Tampa Bay. So I think, and the graphic that Sportsnet put up of like, every defenseman underneath the sun has played with Morgan Rielly this year. And that's not because of Morgan Rielly. That's because they've just rotated, at Philippe Myers and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And I mean, you could name a defenseman and he's played with Morgan Rielly.
Yeah.
That just doesn't work. You have to have some consistency. And I think that having Carlo with him has helped. And I do think that he will bounce back in the playoffs. Otherwise, I think, that's would be a contributing reason to an early exit. But I have people on social media saying, well, this is Morgan Rielly's last go in Toronto.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you remember that no move clause that he has? That's a bit. He's like, well, he'll just waive. Yeah, okay. Tell that to Matt Sundin. Tell that to Mitch Marner. They don't waive no move clauses. The reason why, they want to stay here.
Yeah.
And he's not an overhill defenseman. He's 31 years old. So these idiots on social media who think he's just going to, sure, trade me to Timbuktu. It doesn't work that way. And he's going to bounce back either this year or next year.
Yeah, he will. Like, this is not a typical season for him by any stretch. Like, no way. And I think what we want to see between now and the playoffs is him and Carlo playing together regularly and just having incremental improvement as they go on and get more comfortable with each other. So,
when it comes to changing up the pairings a bit here, going down to the third pairing with Simon Benoit, you were mentioning him. Do you think he needs like a little bit of a break with because he does tend to play better when he has like a couple of games off, and let's say you put in Philip Myers and with Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the right side, because I don't know that.
Yeah.
The fact that Oliver Ekman-Larsson's on the left, it seems to, or sorry, he's on the right. He's playing. He's
playing on his off because he's
playing on his offside. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Do you think putting in Philip Myers might get Benoit back again, like playing better? I like him, like as a defense, like basically just he's a third pair defenseman. I don't know. I don't see that he's doing anything majorly wrong out there.
Well, I think the Simon Benoit of this season is not the Simon Benoit of last season. Last season, he was playing with McCabe, and maybe McCabe covered up some of his issues, but he played much better. He played with more physicality. I think he was positionally better. This year, that has sort of gone by the wayside. I don't think he's been consistent. There have been games where I think he's played well. Sometimes I think he takes himself out of position to make the big hit, and that can be a problem. Yes, I mean, honestly, like the way he's played lately, put him on SpaceX. Send him to the moon or send him to the International Space Station and keep him there until June. It's just really, I mean, the goal last night was somewhat Stolar's. I think he whiffed on it, but mostly the fact that he tripped over his own feet.
Yeah.
So why not give Myers a chance?
Yeah.
Myers,
I think that it's not a bad idea anyways, because we all know that defensemen go down in the playoffs. Like, you're going to need more people. And if he's been sitting all this time, like you kind of want to give him some games to be a little bit more in game shape. No,
I agree. But the problem is you're in a really tight race right now in the Atlantic. And, is this the time that you really want to put in somebody who hasn't played? And I think he hasn't played in like 7 or 8 games. They've stuck with this same 6 since the deadline. So it's been over 2 weeks.
But you might have to put him in the playoffs.
Yes. And
right.
And I agree that Ekman-Larsson on the left side, even though he played a lot of right with Arizona, this is not the Oliver Ekman-Larsson of 20 goals with the Coyotes. This is a different guy. Now, he's still good, and I think it's very favorable for the Leafs to have him basically playing the third pairing like he did in Florida last year. I mean, him doing that and then being able to sort of step up, in which they do. They move him up to the top pairing every once in a while when it's an offensive zone start. I like that. But if you're talking about regular 5-on-5 in the defensive zone, I would rather have left-right with OEL on the left side and Myers on the right side. And that's not to say Myers is any great guns. I mean, he's been around the league, Nashville, Tampa, Philly. Now he's here. They've signed him to an extension. So they at least think he's a decent enough depth defenseman. But really, it's, since they traded Connor Timmins, and had they not traded Connor Timmins, what about Connor Timmins on the bottom pairing? I mean, they played him a little higher they did play him on the bottom pairing. Obviously, he wasn't Berube's type of defenseman. But if you're asking me who was the best of the options on the bottom pairing between Benoit, Myers, and Timmins might have been the answer, but they needed to trade his salary to open enough cap space up to make some of the moves that they made.
Yeah, and Timmins, like you said, he probably wasn't Craig Berube's style of defenseman that he wanted for playoff hockey anyways, especially. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens there.
Well, anyway, you just mentioned the playoffs, so that's obviously the last item we have for you. We want to get your thoughts on that. But it's getting quite a lot of attention. You know, the contract talks related to Matthew Knies also, who's having a great season and is an RFA July 1st. So do you think the Leafs are going to get a long-term deal done with him, or does that depend on the Marner Tavares contract talks?
I think that I think priority A is signing Matthew Knies to a contract. And the reason I say that is because, you know, the Leafs are not up against it in terms of the cap, but they're close. And we see, you know, what happened to Edmonton last year with Broberg and Holloway. And part of that situation was the fact that they were close to being up against it in terms of the cap. They had to, you know, put Evander Kane on wink, wink, nudge, nudge, LTIR. You know, you're going to have surgery there, Evander. And trading Cody Ceci to San Jose to open up a cap space and that's not even, after allowing Broberg and Holloway to go to St. Louis. So they got the draft compensation, but, you know, you lost a guy who's in Holloway who scored 26 goals. And, you know, Broberg, I think, is a project, but
do you think an offer sheet might come with Knies, or?
Oh, I think that he's definitely the kind of guy that somebody would look at and say, yeah, I'd like that guy in my lineup. Absolutely.
The only way that an offer sheet, I mean, remember, the player has a say.
Yeah.
So you have to assume that he wants to leave Toronto, or he's being undervalued or underbid by Toronto. I don't think either one of those things are the case, especially within the wake of Marner and Tavares sort of being in limbo. So I think the first thing that they're going to do is get Knies locked up on a deal. Now, whether that means an 8-year deal or a 6-year deal, I mean, we don't know. I don't think it's going to be a bridge deal.
Right, that was my other question. If it was going to be maybe a bridge deal, no,
I think they're going to try to
lock him up.
Yeah, lock him up. Try to get him as much term as possible. I would prefer 8 years, but right now, you know, if you're getting, now this is the thing, if you're giving him 6 years, which means he gets to UFA 2 years early, then you should be getting somewhat of a discount. Like I'm saying, if it's 8 years and it's $8 million a year, which some people might hesitate to pay him that because he's not firmly established. He's had one good year. Okay, well then a 6-year deal, is it 6-year deal 6.5? I mean, I don't know. If it's 6 years at 8 or 8 years at 8, then I'll take 8 years at 8. I mean, get them as much term for as little as possible. I mean, the problem, you know, the one benefit that they do have is with the exception of a few like Pontus Holmbergs, it's Knies, it's Marner, and it's Tavares.
Yeah.
You know, everybody else is signed of consequence. Nylander, Matthews, everybody else. So they know where they stand, and they have all their defensemen locked up. You know, they're certain in that territory. Now it's a question of, that's why I think you get Knies signed before July the 1st. You know what you're going into free agency with. They've already apparently told Steven Lorenz and Tavares that they're not going to negotiate with them until the end of the season. I also think that, remember, in the summer, you can go 10% over the cap.
Right.
So you have some flexibility there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tavares, not to say he's making it difficult because he's playing so well and that's all they really care about. But if you think that they were going to get him at a significant discount, well, with each goal, that discount, I mean, we were saying, well, 3, 4, 4.5. No, now it's
way.
6
at least. Mm-hmm.
At least. And, so you're looking at Knies and you're looking at Tavares, and between the two of them, conservatively, could be between $13 to $14 million. Where does that leave Mitch Marner?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I have been of the opinion, and I will continue to say this until I'm blue in the face, that Mitch Marner will not be back next year unless they make a deep run in the playoffs. If they don't, he's gone. If they get to the third round, then I think he holds their feet to the fire, and we can't let him go now because we've had this success. I mean, it also means he has to have success, not the team. He has to show up. If they make the conference finals and he's a disappearing act like he's done more than a few times, then I think that they're not to let him go. I think they would make him an offer, but I can't remember who it was, whether it was CJ or Pierre LeBrun or Elliot Friedman, but one of them said in an article that Marner was tired of being the fans' piñata, meaning he gets beaten up every time they lose. Well, when you don't show up, that's what you deserve. Show up, Mitchie. It's time to put up or shut up. You're expecting this team to pay you, over $13.25 million, which is Austin Matthews. I wouldn't do it. But if that's your expectation, then when it counts, you better show up.
I think Nylander too has taken just as much heat during the regular season. A lot of it has happened, mind you, not so much in the playoffs because Willie shows up in the playoffs, but
Marner, not as much this year. I mean,
not this year, no, but in previous years, yes. I mean, especially that contract year of Nylander where he held it. Well, wasn't holding out, I guess, but until he signed like the last second in December,
and then he was a ghost from that point.
Yes, yeah. He took a lot of crap from that, and deservedly so, because he didn't play well after signing that contract, right? But then the following year, he fulfilled everything of that deal.
And the thing is, you can see growth in him that way, though, too. You can see the maturity in him. He has changed. He's not really the same player he was then. Like, there's definite growth there, whereas I don't see as much of that with Marner necessarily.
But he does. The only thing with Marner is, though, too, is he does a lot. Like, he's on the penalty kill. He's
sure
power play. He's 5-on-5. He does everything, and he always has. But
no one's knocking that.
Yeah, there's no doubting
in the playoffs. Basically, that's the question.
Right, and I was asked about, because the criticism of Rielly, and there hasn't been as much criticism of Marner. It says, well, wait till the middle of April, and then Mitch Marner is going to say, "Hold my beer," because Mitch Marner is not being graded on his regular season performance. He's a great regular season performer. He could score 100 points this year. It will mean diddly squat if they lose in 6 games to the Ottawa Senators or in 7 games to Tampa Bay or Florida. It won't mean squat.
Yeah.
He will be, his entire year will be based on what he does in the postseason. Is that fair or unfair? Well, you're asking to be the highest paid player in team's history, because more than likely Darren Ferris, with the cap going up, is going to be asking for more than Austin Matthews. I think that's a situation. No, I just.
Yeah, we've talked about that too ourselves.
He's going to ask for it. Do I think they should be paid that? Not a chance in hell. Austin Matthews is getting paid $13.25. The highest I would go on Mitch Marner is $13.24999999.
Yeah, I would. I don't think I necessarily want to see him get more than Austin. But anyway, I guess we'll see how that all pans out in the next few weeks. And 3 weeks from now, when we get there, that's going to tell the tale. But anyway, what is your prediction there, Mike, with regards to what's going to happen? I mean, like right now, it's like still so hard to predict because we don't even know who's finishing where. Well,
I mean, I could use the Mr. T line from Rocky 3. Prediction pain. Yeah, that when it comes to the Maple Leafs, that's everything that I predict. Well, I mean, okay, tonight they play, or on Sunday they play Anaheim. Yeah. After that, there will be 8 games remaining. 3 of them are against Florida, and Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
That's the season, because I continue to believe that their only chance of advancing in the playoffs is to win the Atlantic Division and then play the weakest of possible candidates in the first round. And as well as that, watch Florida and Tampa beat the crap out of each other. That might be more important. Now, granted, the Leafs have to, they had no success against Ottawa, and if the season ended today, they would face the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, I don't like that matchup.
Yeah, but we know the Ottawa Senator, and okay, that's 2004 as opposed to 2025. But we know that the Ottawa Senators in the past and how the Leafs play against them during the regular season and the playoffs are two different things. This team has to prove to me that they can play in the playoffs. Other than the one series against an exhausted Tampa team, they have not shown up in the playoffs in 8 years. So they have to prove it to me. Show my long time catchphrase when it comes to the playoffs is show me. I'm from Missouri. Show me. Because until you show me, I'm not going to believe it. But I think they have a better chance at beating the Ottawa Senators than they do Florida or Tampa. Even though they've beaten Tampa every game this year and they lost every game to Ottawa, I still would have rather faced Ottawa than Tampa. If they finish in second or third, that means them going through likely both Florida teams. And I don't think they can do that. Their only chance is to win the division, have Florida and Tampa beat the crap out of each other, play Ottawa, beat Ottawa, and then a diminished Florida or Tampa team in the second round. Then they have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah. I agree with that, and we know that when you're going to win the Stanley Cup, you're going through that playoff juggernaut. Some things have to bounce your way for that to happen. And those are a couple of examples of things that would have to go our way, Anyway, I think that's it for today, Mike. Thank you once again for being our guest. You can hear more of Mike's Leaf views on the Leafs Convo podcast and as host of Off the Post Radio covering the NHL. You can find both shows, of course, on YouTube. And look for more hockey news from Mike coming soon at hockeyhotstove.com. And if you don't follow him on X, make sure you do. At Mike in Buffalo is his handle. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, ladies.
So, Mike had some his usual excited self with his comments and the playoffs. He didn't really say who he would put in goal, though.
He kind of skirted that question a little bit,
Yeah.
But I don't blame him, as we were talking, it's really hard to nail anything down right now. I think, what he was more discussing is, the chances that the Leafs have and the opportunity that they have to, make the road easier for themselves for a change. So, we're definitely close to that. And the next 2 weeks are going to tell the tale for sure.
Yeah. But it's actually a light week coming up for the Leafs.
It's a good opportunity to practice a little bit.
Yeah. But after coming back from the West Coast trip, they're going to have a couple of home games. And the first one is a big one versus the Florida Panthers on Wednesday night. And then Saturday night, they play the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are in the hunt for a wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. Although the fact that Montreal won, I think they've gone ahead of them now. But that's going to go down to the wire, basically. I think that
for
final
sure
wild card spot. Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder, if anyone's going to be able to clinch any spots, until the last day.
Yeah.
But anyway, then the Leafs have a couple days off before going to Florida again next week for a back-to-back in what will probably decide who will take the Atlantic. So they're going to be playing Tuesday versus the Panthers, and then they'll face off against the Lightning on the Wednesday night. That's pretty crappy to give them a back-to-back there on that, though, I have to say. But
and I thought actually that was the last one, but it's not. But they still have another one, another back-to-back. It's just insane. But that's definitely I would think that's going to decide it. So we need to get these 2 points versus Anaheim tonight, and just go from there. And hopefully that game on Wednesday night, though, at home, they need to get that one because I don't know if they can do it. Well, I mean, obviously we want them to win in Florida, but I don't know if they can. It's much better if they could do it at home, even if they're coming off the road trip like we were talking with Mike. It's not the greatest thing when you come back from the West Coast and your first game back is generally kind of a dud. But
well, though, with the stakes, maybe that's a good thing because they know that they've got to bring it. So it's, they can't kind of limp their way back into things. They have to, really focus and give it their all. It'll be interesting too. It'll be our first look at Brad Marchand in the red.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I do hope they put, like Mike was saying, they should put Joseph Wall hopefully in net for that one, because Stolarz has had a couple of opportunities he hasn't won. So
exactly,
versus his old team. All right, so we'll be back next week with an episode of Leafs Quick Hits, covering all the games, and hopefully the Leafs will still be in first place, or at least in the race for first place in the Atlantic. Pretty sure they will be. But in the meantime, don't forget to hit that follow button wherever you're listening to our show. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and you can also find us on the Believe Network at Believe.com. We would also love to hear from you, so be sure to leave us a rating or a review, Apple, Spotify, answer our poll question. Feedback from our listeners is so important, and we thank you for taking the time.
And another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page at Ko-fi.com. You can follow us there, and if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. You can find the link to our Ko-fi page on our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages.
And as always, thank you to our healthcare workers and first responders for everything that they do.
And we thank you, as always, as well, for listening and watching Ladies Talking Leafs, presented by Bet Online. Till next time, go Leafs, go.
Do you believe?